Welcome to another episode of First Reads, the series in which I just do a first reading of a poem. Maybe it's helpful, maybe it's not. I haven't seen these poems before. I haven't encountered the poet. I very specifically pick people that way that I haven't seen or that I don't know, so I can just have that essential first reading to see, whether I like it, what my reaction is to it, and kind of go from there. Sometimes if I come back for second reading, it's very different if I know more about the person and kind of, where they're from and what they do. So this one is from 128 Lit. It's a great little journal that kind of focuses on expanding the boundaries of what people are reading in the U.S., so I suggest looking at it. This one is called Colosseum by Nathalie Handal. So when I look at a poem, always I look at the form of it first before I do anything else, because I think that kind of teaches you a little bit about it. I just picked this one because of the kind of airy look of it on the page. There's nothing else beyond that. Right away I look at it and I can see there's different syllable counts and things like that go throughout it. It's in, it's in a two-line form. I would say couplets, but there's no rhyme or anything with this. And it looks like mostly just free verse because of the shifting. I do notice, without having read it, it says tell me, so there's, starting off with some literary techniques here. This is kind of repeating the beginning, do, kind of repeating of the initial lines. This is not uncommon in poetry, and you get it in all kind of people. I mean, I think of it as Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman's a great technique to repeat, but it's really common. So I'm not going to focus too much on the form. I don't see much to play around with right off the bat. It's fairly traditional free verse that has become traditional in the U.S. So we'll just go from there. So, tell me it's for the columns and nothing else. So I don't know that this first stanza, if it relates to the title Colosseum. Colosseum automatically brings me to that famous Colosseum in Rome, but we'll see if it does it. The columns, columns here may be related. I don't know. I don't know who's being addressed here. Is it the reader? Is it somebody specific? I don't know who the speaker's talking to at this point. Tell me it's for the Colosseums and nothing else. We're not told what the it's for, so it's kind of hard to know at this point, but tell me it's for the Colosseums and nothing else. So we're going to have to keep going to kind of figure out what's going on, I suppose. Tell me that you aren't undressing a sunken theater because you are lonely. So I still don't know who's being taught. Who's the the listener of this poem. It doesn't feel like it's the reader at this point because of the images, but I don't know. Addressing a sunken theater because you were lonely. I don't know if this relates specifically to the Colosseum. The Roman Colosseum, of course, had in its later days a water feature in it, so perhaps this relates to the kind of their battles, the boat battles that happened in there. I don't know. In itself, it feels sunken when you're kind of inside looking down at it, but I don't know if this directly relates to it. It feels very personal. Tell me that you aren't undressing a sunken theater because you were lonely, like you're doing whatever this is because of loneliness. And tell me it's for the columns. It's like, tell me something that it's not almost, it feels like, whatever the it is in this case. Tell me that the echo that opened the width of an ancient city isn't the size of the scar that distanced us from the world. So this, this sentence structure is expanding. So the first one was just, two short lines. Then we go to three, and now we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, just 5 lines. So it's kind of, whatever is being told to me, it's expanding in the poem. It's literally this kind of sense of tell me, this almost questioning, getting somebody else to speak is growing. Tell me the echo that opened the width of an ancient city. Ancient city here feels, with the Colosseum, it feels like Rome, but it could just be an image here. Tell me the echo that opened the width of the size isn't the size. It's like something, the echo is something like the after effect. An after effect of something, the after effect of a sound that's opening. This width, it isn't the size of the scar that distances us from the world. It's this kind of we don't have enough specific imagery to know exactly what's going on, and maybe this poem would be helped by other poems in which we could kind of see the world we're in with this. But for this, we have the echo that opened with an ancient city. So we have a scar that's, distancing us in the world. We have this echo that opens, that's kind of pushing open, and it's related somehow to this ancient activity. The Colosseum, the city, it's somehow related to us, and it's asking for an explanation. The speaker is asking for an explanation from somebody. And I don't know if it's a specific somebody or just a kind of societal somebody. I'm not really sure at this point. But it's very demanding. Tell me about the burning of Rome, and how we get short again, like back to the beginning. We expanded, and then telling me about the burning of Rome. So we do actually get Rome at this point, the Colosseum, specifically in Rome. But I don't know if this is even about Rome. It doesn't really feel like it. It kind of feels like it's using Rome as a symbol of something else, but I'm not sure what that symbol is yet. Tell me about the burning of Rome, like this burning down of the kind of ancient place. And the echo of it that continues in this scar that distances us from the world. So I don't even know if we're like literally specifically getting a point about Rome, or if this is some kind of personal thing, or if this is bigger than the personal. It feels like some kind of societal thing. Do we need what leaves us, or what makes us leave? Do we need what leaves us, or what makes us leave? That's such a personal question. And it seems like it would depend on the context here of like what is the context of that question. And then with Rome, when it's burned, like if you're a citizen, are you needing that place, or do you need the thing to make you leave the place because the place is already so messed up when it gets burned down? Like which is it? It's like if you read it in the personal context, it could be the person that makes you leave, or the act that makes you leave a person. Do you need that act to make you leave, or do you actually need just that thing that's you're leaving? So I don't really know. Do all lights drown us eventually? And this is it seems to be related to this kind of ancient city concept, but also like this stuff that's there. Does it drown us having these old lights? And I feel like in this case, you could read it differently depending on what the wider world of this is. Is it old lights in terms of a personal relationship? Do we need those old lights that are there, that are problematic, that we know are problematic, that are this scar? Do we need that? Is it going to drown us eventually? And this could be societally, a place too. Do the traumas of the place, do they eventually drown you? Do you need them? Do they drown you? You are surrendering. Stay. And so we have a specific you pointed out at this point. You are surrendering. Stay. Is the speaker talking to themselves? Are they talking to us? Are they talking to some specific person you are surrendering? Stay. It is too late to remember everything. This kind of feels like all throughout this there's this undercurrent of the story of something old that's scarred, that's there, that's been burnt, that's problematic in itself. Is it going to drown you or not? But if you're surrendering to it, you're making the choice that you need what is there. Surrendering to the drowning, or surrendering to this thing you think is important. I'm not sure. It's too late to remember everything, which is to say, this is how we hold history in our splitting bodies. Like, it's just a sense of old lights, of ancient city, like these old things that are there. We're holding them in our body, and our bodies are splitting open with the weight of this, the drowning, the surrendering, whatever it is, the stuff we remember and we can't remember, and they're betraying our hearts, which I think is kind of answering that question, do we need what leaves us? Sometimes your heart picks what's there, whether you want want to pick it logically or not. It's still picking it. It could be a place, could be a person, it could be this traumatic experience. But whatever it is splitting us open as we go. Interesting poem in itself. I don't know that I got to kind of what I would think is the poetic meaning of this, because it's hard without more specific details to know what's going on. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I think if this were placed into a context of political pieces, it would totally make sense. If you place it into a context of a personal piece, it could make sense as well. In the political context, I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on that you could see. These traumas that are there, that linger, that break you open, but you stay, and they do have personal, effect on you outside of the societal effect. So interesting, which mostly means that I need to read more of this poet's work to understand completely, not understand completely, but understand what's going on in this person's work. I should say that the language in itself is worth a read. It's very evocative, so there's nothing that kicks me out of a poem. And for me, like when I read it, I think of a good poem, and that could be an experimental poem, a fairly straightforward narrative poem. It really is about how it holds together itself for me, and it could be about any topic, but like, does it hold together? And this one, it plays with a lot of real kind of traditional poetic techniques. You have the repetition of the line breaks are done very well to kind of lead you along. The pacing of it, kind of the personalized voicing of it, it all kind of works really, really well together. So it's definitely worth looking into this poet's work even more, I